There were so many questions of where Aerea Targaryen had gone for over a year. Where could she have gone? What could have happened to her? What brought her home? Was Balerion the monster believed to haunt the Velvet Hills of Andalos? Did his flames start the fire that swept across the disputed lands? Could the Black Dread have flown as far as Astapor to be the dragon in the fighting pits? The answer to all these questions is most likely no. So, where did Aerea Targaryen go after fleeing Dragonstone? Queen Rhaena's first thought was that she had flown to King's Landing, and next looked to Fair Isle and Old Town. Both made sense, but Aerea Targaryen was not to be found at either place, nor anywhere in Westeros. Others, including the Queen, took this to mean that the princess had flown east, not west, and would be found somewhere in Essos. The girl might have thought that the Free Cities to beyond her mother's grasp, and Queen Alysanne in particular seemed convinced that Aerea was fleeing her mother as much as Dragonstone itself. Yet, Lord Rhaego's agents and informants couldn't find any hint of her across the narrow sea, nor even a whisper of her dragon. Though Septon Barth can offer no certain proof, he does suggest an answer. It seems they've all been asking the wrong question. Aerea Targaryen was still well shy of her 13th birthday on the morning she ran away. Though no stranger to dragons, she'd never ridden one before, and for reasons that are unknown, she chose Balerion instead of one of the younger dragons. Driven by her conflicts with her mother, maybe she simply wanted a larger dragon, more fearsome than Rhaena's Dreamfire. She may also have wanted to tame the dragon that killed her father, though Princess Aerea had never known her father, and it's hard to know what her feelings might be towards him and his death. No matter her reasons, she had made her choice. The princess might have intended to fly to King's Landing, as her mother had suspected. She might have wanted to seek out her twin sister in Old Town, or Lady Alyssa Farman, who had once promised to take her on an adventure. It is one thing to leap upon the back of a dragon, but it's quite another to bend it to your will. More so a beast as old and as fierce as the Black Dread. From the very start, it was asked, where did Aerea take Balerion? But the question that should have been asked was, where did Balerion take Aerea? To Septon Barth, only one answer made sense. Balerion was the largest and oldest of the three dragons that King Aegon and his sisters rode to conquest. Vhagar and Meraxes had hatched on Dragonstone. Balerion alone had come to the island with Aenar the Exile and Daenys the Dreamer, and was the youngest of the 5 dragons they brought with them from Valyria. The older dragons had died during the intervening years, but Balerion lived on, growing ever larger, fiercer and more willful. If we discount the tales of sorceresses, as we should, the Black Dread is maybe the only living creature in the world that knew Valyria before the Doom, and that's where he took the poor child clinging to his back. If she went willingly, it would be a surprise, as she'd neither no knowledge nor the force of will to turn him. What befell her on Valyria can only be a guess. Judging from her condition when she returned, Septon Barth found it hard to even think about. The Valyrians were more than dragon lords. They practiced blood magic and other dark arts, delving deep into the earth for secrets best left buried, twisting the flesh of beasts and men to fashion monstrous and unnatural chimeras. Many think it was for this that the gods doomed them. Valyria is cursed, all agree, and even the boldest sailors steer well clear of its smoking waters. But it is a mistake to believe that nothing lives there now. The things found in Aerea Targaryen live there now, along with other unimaginable horrors. Barth said in his notes the following: I have written here at length of how the princess died, but there is something else, something even more frightening that requires mention. Balerion had wounds as well. The Black Dread, the most fearsome dragon ever to soar through the skies of Westeros, returns to King's Landing with a half-healed scar no one recalled having seen before, and a jagged rent down his left side, almost 9 feet long, a gaping red wound from which his blood still dripped, hot and smoking. The Lords of Westeros are proud men, and the Septons of the Faith and the Maesters of the Citadel, in their own ways, prouder still. But there is much and more of the nature of the world that we do not understand and may never understand. Septon Barth's account ends there. He would never again touch upon the fate of Princess Aerea in any of his writings, and even these words would be sealed away amongst his papers to remain undiscovered for almost 100 years. The horrors he had witnessed had a profound effect upon the Septon. It was subsequent to this that Barth began his research and investigations that would ultimately lead him to write Dragons, Worms and Wyverns, Their Unnatural History, a volume that the Citadel would condemn as provocative and unsound, and that Baelor the Blessed would order expunged and destroyed. It is likely that Septon Barth discussed his suspicions with the king as well, though the matter never came before the small council. Later that same year, Jaehaerys issued a royal edict forbidding any ship suspected of having visited the Valyrian Islands or sailed the Smoking Sea from landing at any port or harbour in the Seven Kingdoms. The king's own subjects were likewise forbidden from visiting Valyria under pain of death. Little and less needs to be said of the return of Rhaena Targaryen from Estamont after her daughter's death. By the time the ravens reached her at Greenstone, the princess had already died and been burned. Only ashes and bones remained for her mother when Dreamfire delivered her to the Red Keep. "It would seem that I am always doomed to come late," she said. When the king offered to have her ashes interred on Dragonstone, Rhaena refused. Aerea hated Dragonstone, she reminded the king. She wanted to fly, and so saying, she took her child's ashes high into the sky on Dreamfire and scattered them upon the winds. It was a dark time. Dragonstone was still Rhaena's as she wanted it, but Rhaena refused it, claiming there was nothing for her now but grief and ghosts. When Alsyanna asked if she'd return to Greenstone, Rhaena shook her head. She said to her sister there were ghosts there as well, a kind of ghost, no less sad. The king suggested that she remain with them at court, even offering her a seat on his small council. That made his sister laugh. She warned her brother that he would not like the counsel she might offer. Then Queen Alsyanna took her sister's hand in hers and reminded her that she was still a young woman, that if she wanted, they could find her a gentle young lord who would cherish her as they did. You could have other children. That only served to bring a snarl to Rhaena's lips. She snatched her hand away from her sisters and said, "I fed my last husband to my dragon. If you make me take another, I may as well eat him myself." The palace where King Jaehaerys settled his sister, Rhaena, in the end, was made perhaps the most unlikely seat of all. Harrenhal. Jordan Towers, one of the last lords to remain faithful to Maegor the Cruel, had died of a congestion of the chest, and Black Harren's vast ruin had passed to his last surviving son, named after the late king. All of his brothers having perished in King Maegor's wars, Maegor Towers was the last of his line, and sickly and impoverished as well. In a castle built to house thousands, Towers dwelled alone, but for a cook and 3 elderly men-at-arms. The castle has 5 colossal towers, the king pointed out, and the Towers boy occupied part of one. He told his sister she could have the other 4. Rhaena was amused by that. She told her brother one would suffice, as she has a smaller household than he does. When Alsyanna reminded that Harrenhal too was said to have ghosts, Rhaena shrugged, reminding her that they are not hers, and would not trouble her. And thus came to pass, Aerea Targaryen, daughter of 1 king, wife to 2, sister to a 3rd, spent the final years of her life in the aptly named Widow's Tower of Harrenhal, while across the castle's yard a sickly youth named after the king who had slain the father of her children maintained his own household in the Tower of Dread. Curiously, we are told, in time, Rhaena and Maegor Towers came to forge a friendship of sorts. After her death in 61 AC, Rhaena took his servants into her own household and continued to maintain them until her own death. Rhaena Targaryen died in 53 AC at 50 years of age. After the death of her daughter Aerea, she never again visited King's Landing or Dragonstone, nor played any part in ruling of the realm, though she did fly to Oldtown once a year to visit her remaining daughter, Rhaella, a scepter at the Starry Sept. Her hair of gold and silver turned white before the end, and the small folk of the Riverlands feared her as a witch. Travellers who turned up at the gates of Harrenhal in hopes of hospitality were given bread and salt and the privilege of a night's shelter during those years, but not the honour of the Queen's company. Those who were fortunate spoke of the glimpses of her at the castle battlement, or seeing her coming and going on her dragon, for Rhaena continued to ride Dreamfire until the end, just as she had at the beginning. When she died, King Jaehares ordered she be burned at Harrenhal, and her ashes interred there. He said that his brother Aegon had died at the hands of our uncle in battle beneath the God's Eye. His wife was not with him at the battle, but she died that day as well. With Rhaena's death, Jaehares granted Harrenhal and all its lands and incomes to Sir Bywin Strong, the brother of Sir Lucamore Strong, was Kingsguard and a renowned knight in his own right.